Oh no, this is shocking. We should all be really afraid of this. Is there anyone else out there, apart from me, who's absolutely sick of people doing YouTube videos with, fear prawn? And let me see if I can get the face right. Something like, I'm not sure if I can do that face, that appears on the thumbnail, of like, oh, this is really scary. Be afraid. And I've got to say that it absolutely drives me mad, and I refuse to click on it, because the people that are doing it, they're doing it for clicks, aren't they, and money, And then the other thing as well is that quite often the things that they're trying to get people to be afraid of are stories that come from the big club themselves, and what these kind of YouTubers do is they end up amplifying the message that the big club wants to send out. So as I say, I'm done with it. I don't know if you're noticing this too, but the number of content creators that I'm watching is rapidly decreasing all the time. In most cases it's because I've realised that they're controlled opposition. Was it like Albert Pike, that Freemason satanic guy? If the people want a hero, we'll provide them. I just think it's hard to not underestimate the sheer number of content creators that they've got working for them. You can call this AstroTurf, couldn't you? Like fake grassroots, new media creations. In case you're wondering, this is a lovely field of barley. It's on the other side too. Yeah, and the other thing that I find very difficult to tolerate now is people who are just doing fear porn on YouTube just to get clicks and stuff. So, I ain't going to do it. I'm not going to be doing a video on Donald Trump or whatever, because it's just so obvious that they want us to spend our energy on that and other stuff that I can't even be bothered to talk about. So what I want to talk about for the rest of the video is fear. I think I can't remember the song. Somebody can tell me in the comments who did that song, "Fear is a Useless Emotion." For me, I would go even further. Than that. That fear is one of the big club's main control mechanisms. Like, do they want you to be fearful of the future? Of course they do, because people who are fearful are easier to control, right? And people who are fearful, they don't think straight. People who are fearful, they tend to be paralysed by their own fear, so it's much harder for people to mount an opposition when they're afraid. And you have this kind of phenomenon. I talked in the past to you about pressing the gamble button. Fearful people are far less likely to want to press that gamble button. So fearful people are the type of people that just moan and moan and moan about their current situation, but they won't do anything about that. They won't try to enact internal change to offset an external problem that fearful people, they moan, but they won't do anything about their own lives to change it, because they're fearful that if they do try to change something, maybe it might be just like changing their job, new career, let alone moving to a new country, they're fearful that that might not work out well for them. And what I'm saying here is that change always creates uncertainty, but you shouldn't allow fear to stop you from making changes in your own life, rather than just doing nothing, living in fear, being paralysed, and then complaining about situations that you could do something about. Even worse than that is making excuses for your own inaction. The other thing I'd say too is that living in fear is like an easy option, because you don't actually have to do anything apart from like worry. Our creator doesn't want us to live in fear. That we are, maybe an atheist would even maybe understand this, that we are in the middle of a battle between good and evil, And evil's main weapon is the use of fear. So the last thing we should be doing is spending our time looking at fear porn on the internet, when really what we ought to be doing instead is getting on with our lives and doing things to make our own lives better. Now, what that might be might vary from one person to another, because we've all got different individual tastes and preferences. However, one thing that should unite us all is the fact that nothing good ever happens to us when we choose to live in fear. And it might benefit other people, you see. If you're in fear, you're easier to control, you're easier to manipulate. And you know, psychopaths, they actually enjoy seeing people who are fearful. They actually get a massive kick off it. The same way that we might get a kick from giving or receiving love, for them, they get massive kicks out of seeing people or putting people into a fear state and then just watching it. So, you know, again, what I say is that we should not be engaging with fear porn. That's not to say that we shouldn't be fearful of consequences of our own actions. That is very, very important. And, you know, basically, I think we can all agree, whether we're atheists, agnostics, Christians, or any other kind of religion, is that our life here is actually comparatively short. You know, next March I'll be 60. You know, I don't know how long I've got left here, but you know, what happens to me here is I believe, you see, that human beings, we consist of three things. We've got a body, we've got a soul, and we've got a spirit. And what happens to us down here affects, you know, our eternity once these kind of, let's call it the trendy name, these skin suits expire. So there's an awful lot to play for. And you know, maybe I'll you know, lots and lots of people are afraid of, you know, Jill Bates, the World Economic Forum, etc. But these people, they can only affect what happens to us in the here and now. And if you take the broader picture, you know, as I've said this before, you know, never mind Black Lives Matter. What about eternal lives matter? Where is your soul? Where is it going to go after your body expires? You know, if you think about people, I don't know, those of you that have seen people die, it's obvious that point when you see somebody's soul and spirit depart their body. It's obvious. Like, where does that go to? I think our time here on earth is just a massive test, and it's the highest stakes test ever about where do we go afterwards. Where do we get to spend our eternal life? Do we get to spend it somewhere pleasurable, or do we get to spend it somewhere extremely, you know, well, beyond description, you know, in hell, basically? And there are people, I'm not going to name names again because I've gone past doing that, who again are like sort of spreading despondency and fear porn. And it's like, oh, these people, these rich Satanists, they seem to have fantastic lives, and there's nothing bad happens to them, and the world's all unjust, and therefore God's a bad person. This is so misguided, because what it ignores is the issue of what happens when these people die. So I think it may well have been Anton LaVey. He was the guy that founded the Church of Satan. And Satanists, you know, they believe in, it's all inverted, so they believe in being the worst possible person that you can be. You know, rather than like Jesus saying, treat other people like you would like to be treated. What Satanists do is treat other people in the way that they would not like to be treated, to treat people as badly as possible. So they think that by being the worst person possible, this is a good thing. Well, when Anton LaVey was on his deathbed, he suddenly realised that it hadn't worked out for him. I've also sort of heard experiences of this too, where people who've lived a very bad life have suddenly realised, you know, as they're taking their last breath, they're scared out of their minds I'm not going to give I heard one on a podcast, you know, some geezer who's obviously he's a dodgy git. His dad probably was a dodgy git, and as he was dying, he was like extremely fearful, that the person that was dying, and you know, that just backs it up. So my point here, what I'm trying to get at here, is be fearful of the right entity, right? Rather than being fearful of Klaus Schwab, I would say be careful, be fearful of making the wrong decisions and ending up, you know, spending eternity in somewhere extremely hot and unpleasant. Because make no mistake, rather, there are consequences attached to your actions. So if we're not supposed to live in fear, what are we supposed to do during our life? I think my answer is to be joyous, and to love. Try to love other people. Find people that you enjoy being with. I think also another thing that I would say is, from a Finnish perspective here, this is just a grass verge. They don't cut the grass verges in over here. They just leave it for wildflowers. You can see a bee and a butterfly maybe over there. Is to appreciate like small things. I'm sure there's a phrase in Finnish that articulates this. But Finns are very good at that. They enjoying small things and not taking things for granted. So, you know, one of those things is nature, obviously. Finns are quite happy to just sit without talking to somebody and just enjoy sitting outside in their mucky. They're looking at a lake, or looking into the forest, or looking at bees, or listening to birdsong. These things don't cost money, and you know, they can bring great happiness. But I guess the problem is, particularly for many Brits, is that they're so ego and status orientated, you know, that they're looking for happiness in a new BMW leasehold car or something, or wearing a branded item of clothing down at the pub, you know, thinking that they're going to look better and more impressive than you know, somebody who also lives in the same community that they want to impress, or maybe they're envious of. And this is not the way to be joyous. This is not the way to live a happy life. And dare I say it, learn to become more Finnish and appreciate the things that you have, even if those things might be very small things, like the €50 bicycle that I rode up to the beach with. And be less British in the sense of stop worrying about things that other people have, that you think you ought to have, and stop living in fear of what other people might think of you, or you know, what other people might try to do to you in the here and now. Because in the whole scheme of things, you know, in the eternal lives matter, this is just a blink of an eyelid. So I've just finished my swim, and just a few kind of final thoughts really. So, you know, if don't live in fear. If there is something that you're worried about, try to do something to take yourself out of that situation, to remove the underlying source of whatever it is that you're fearful of. And don't waste your time just watching just constant doom mongering by people who are either working for the big club or just doing it for clicks and money, and doing the stupid like thumbnails for their YouTube videos. It's pathetic. The final thing is, I'm just going to give a few quotes, you know, quotes from this book that many people have never even read, but that doesn't stop them from being highly critical of it. And if you are one of those people, you might want to think very carefully about what exactly is it that triggers you so badly, because you know what you'll see, as I'll give two quotes, and both of these quotes are basically urging you not to live in fear. So the thing that I've got to ask you is, does that sound like social control? Have a think about it. So So the first Bible quote is from second chapter of Timothy, and it says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." And I think this is even more powerful. This is the words of Jesus Christ as recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verse 18. So Jesus says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love." Then we got from chapter 1, verse 9 of the book of Joshua, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." So the question to agnostics and atheists is this, like, does this sound like a book that's been written by people that want to control you? You know, because like this is all about telling you that you shouldn't be fearful, right? Which is a bit strange, isn't it? Because people who want to control others do so through fear. So kind of my message to, you know, people that rubbish the Bible without ever having even glanced at it for 5 minutes is just read it, and you might find that it starts to help you. And if you do have a particular problem with fear, I think it can be addictive. This is what I've seen with people. They seem to enjoy clicking on the doom porn thumb titles where, let's see if I can do it again. It's like, I can't really do it. I can't really do that kind of fear face. But you might ask, pray to God and just say to him, stop me from being fearful. Just remove, I don't want to be fearful anymore. Make a decision, ask God. And yeah, the only other thing that I would say just as a final thing is that I suppose I'm going to mention two things now, two channels now. Like, first one is Rise Above. They're on YouTube, and I like those guys, and they're decent guys. They talk about what's happening in the news, but they don't do it from a point of view of fear. What I like about them is that they take the mickey out of it, and that's another thing as well, is that these people, the big club, the controllers, the funny handshake gang, whatever you want to call them, they want us in a fear state, because when we're in a fear state, we're controllable. What they really don't like is us mocking them and like telling them that we know who they are and that we're not afraid of them. They can't, and we think that they're just stupid and worthy of mockery only. And the other one I would say is the Sheep Farm podcast. They do similar things. They use a lot of humor, and you know, for me, those are along with the Lee Veritas Vincent. I like his channel as well because he's 100% authentic. Because that's another issue for another day, isn't it? The issue of authenticity. I'm done with kind of pretentiousness. Occupational hazard of being 59 and from being from Rochdale, you know. Anyway, that's all that I want to say today. So God bless from sunny Finland.